Welcome to State of the State. I'm Darlene DeRezzo, and tonight I'm in conversation with three guests from Washington County. We are talking about an internationally recognized evidence-based program known as Mental Health First Aid and Man Therapy. We have with us Susan Orban, Director of Healthy Bodies, Healthy Minds, Washington County, psychotherapist Mike Cirillo, and Dr. Rob Harrison, who directs the Zero Suicide and Man Therapy Washington County programs. Welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, well, thanks for coming back. So, Susan and Mike, you've been here previously to discuss mental health awareness and the trainings that are happening down in South County, Washington County. So let's start with you, Susan. Tell us about Healthy Bodies, Healthy Minds, and the Washington County Coalition for Children.
Sure. So Healthy Bodies, Healthy Minds, Washington County is the region's health equity zone, and it is an unprecedented collaborative effort to transform the health of Washington County. And just like the name implies, it's all about healthy bodies and healthy minds. And we're going to talk about some of our Healthy Minds initiatives in a little bit. The Washington County Coalition for Children is a key partner in that work and really began the work in mental health first aid in 2015 in partnership with the local superintendents rolling out youth mental health first aid.
So tell us a little about the history. So the program started in 2015?
Correct.
Okay, and then so take us from 2015 now into 2021.
Sure. So we began rolling out youth mental health first aid, a mental health literacy course geared to give people the skills they need to identify people, young people, that may be struggling with a mental health challenge. And we began teaching teachers and youth leaders across Washington County and had a federal grant to do that for 3 years. In 2018, Healthy Bodies, Healthy Minds, seeing the success of the Washington County Coalition in rolling out youth mental health first aid, partnered with the coalition to obtain a federal grant to roll out mental health first aid in all of its modules. So there's an adult mental health first aid, there's a fire and EMS mental health first aid, and Mike can talk to you further about all those various modules. But we've trained over 1,000 people in Washington County in the various modules, and it's really a growing movement. And the whole goal of it is to raise awareness, give people the skills that they need, and to really create a more compassionate and connected community.
Mm-hmm. So what makes Washington County community, that area, special, or why are these programs just happening down there? I haven't heard about anything like this happening in any other part of the state.
She's a very good grant writer.
No, mental health first aid is being implemented in other places across Rhode Island.
Oh, good. Okay.
And it is being implemented across the United States. The national goal, is to train 1 in 10 people in mental health first aid. We took it on because
Can I
Washington,
pause you right there?
Sure.
So let's tell the audience about mental health first aid. So
Sure.
just specifically, what are you training individuals in regards to and why?
So mental health first aid is a mental health literacy course designed to give people that aren't mental health professionals the skills they need to be able to identify common mental health challenges and the skills they need to intervene with someone in both crisis and non-crisis situations. So it gives them the confidence to be able to ask, hey, what's going on? Is there something I can do to help you? And recognize when someone might be experiencing a panic attack or might be experiencing an overdose, and so forth. And so it was started in Australia and it's become an international movement. And in Washington County, we are a designated mental health shortage area, and we recognized that everyone needs these skills to be able to identify people that need help, and that we could really bolster what was the services and the connections that were needed if we began with mental health first aid. And Mike has really been leading that work and organizing trainings for us and can really speak further to that.
Okay, so Mike, let me ask first about the shortage. So there's a shortage of mental health care in Washington County?
Well, we're a...
You can speak to that, or Mike can speak to that.
We're a designated mental health shortage area, meaning that there aren't enough psychiatrists for the number of people that live in Washington County, and there aren't enough behavioral health providers available to meet the needs.
Okay.
This is especially true with adolescents. We have a very short supply. And even a shorter supply of male therapists to work with adolescent males. You know, the impact of COVID has been kind of a blessing and a bane in terms of the way we deliver the programs. The short answer to the impact that COVID has had on our trainings, whether it's for the fire EMS, for the general adults, for public safety, for the military and veterans model, the short answer is Zoom. And now everybody can do these trainings online. Some of it's self-paced, some of it's instructor-led. We can do them in 2-3 hour sessions instead of a full 6-hour session. So that has really amped up our capacity to reach into people's homes and make it much easier for them to access the program.
We used to do the trainings all in person. So we've pivoted.
Yeah. How are you getting the word out?
So
Let's let people know that this is available.
Well, press.
Right.
This program did a great job for us 2 years ago. Rerunning the program we did has been helpful. So it's it's word of mouth, and it's personal relationships with the organization. You know, someone once said that because Rhode Island is so small and most of our families are pretty well integrated and been around here for a long time, we all know somebody. We all know a guy or a gal, and we make these connections and bring the program to them. One of Susan's initiatives initially was to get every school district in the county to commit to involving their staffs. And we've trained, as she mentioned, well over 600 educators by now. Dr. Harrison and I have done that dog and pony show multiple times and trained. How many of you trained now in Westerly?
About 375
Right.
School personnel in Westerly School District alone. Yeah, so.
Are these trainings offered to young adults?
Anyone over?
So great that you should mention that. So the National Council for Behavioral Health that oversees mental health first aid in the United States just launched a teen mental health first aid course, and we trained an instructor, and she's going to begin rolling out teen mental health first aid with youth group members of the Charahoe Task Force. And so we're very excited to see that getting going.
Okay, so now, Mike, how do you and Dr. Harrison know each other? Have you started working?
Susan brought us together.
Okay,
It's
so Susan, how did you
only a Rhode Island thing. And it's not just the gray hair, by the way.
So when I was looking for youth mental health first aid instructors, I wanted to recruit instructors that had expertise and came from different disciplines, so that we would have a cross-sector of perspectives and respected instructors. And Dr. Harrison was very much a champion for suicide prevention, and I thought he would make a great youth mental health first aid instructor. And similarly with Mike, a long time, very well respected therapist with young men. I knew they both would make awesome instructors, and so I recruited them.
Okay, so that's how you two met. Okay, so should we talk about man therapy? Mantherapy.org
Sure.
now. Okay.
So man therapy, well, just the background of it is that the group that has the highest numbers of suicides in Washington County and nationally are middle-aged men.
Men, okay, and where are you getting the stats from?
CDC.
The CDC?
Yes,
Okay.
right. And also it's been proven that middle-aged men are the most resistant to getting help
Why do you think that
because
is?
of the stigma. Real men don't need to talk to people about their feelings, that kind of an approach. We don't need to have feelings in the first place. We just don't demonstrate our feelings when we do have them, and we try to hide them and make everyone think everything's fine. But in fact, men struggle with depression just as much as women do. It's just not as evident many times. And by far the majority of men who struggle deeply many times end up in suicide. So many more men kill themselves than women do. And
it's often more violent.
Yes.
So it's, yeah.
So man therapy was originated in Colorado by a company called Grit Digital, who realized the same thing that I just mentioned. And so they started this program to say, well, how can we engage men? How can we attract them to at least go to a website and try to figure out, what's going on with them? So they came up with this very irreverent but very humorous approach to engage middle-aged men particularly.
Yeah, so I'm wondering why they chose that sort of irreverent character. I mean, they created a character.
Sure.
Right? So why a man that looks and sounds and acts like that?
I think because they are trying to decrease the stigma. They're using humor to reach people who couldn't be reached other ways. The slogans that they say, and we have a number of different graphics that can be displayed that I've been told, as well as the overall idea of what man therapy is about. But it just attracts, it's humorous, it attracts men, and particularly the
Mike is smiling. So you're smiling.
The manly type man who wouldn't
You think it, so, well, you said it's humorous that attracts men, and I see Mike smiling.
Well, I treat, what I like to tell people is I treat adolescent males of all ages. And so a lot of my midlife patients and public safety patients and fire EMS and military patients, by the time they get to me, it is sometimes they're really on the edge because of the stigma that Dr. Harrison is talking about in the program he's put together. So we go, you go to the mountain, and the mountain with men is, I don't want to talk about my feelings, I'm just stressed, something along those lines. This is an approach that's evidence informed and has been very successessful in other parts of the country.
Yep.
They did a 2-year study in Michigan that turned out to be very effective in attracting, getting men to go to this website. One of the nice things about it is they can do it anonymously. They don't have to let people know what they're doing, but they can go to the website and they can take, the website is a wealth of information. It's not only humorous and entertaining, but it also gives them real information. For example, there's what's called a 20-point head inspection that will help a man to figure out, am I just feeling stressed, or do I really maybe have depression? Or am I really having a lot of anxiety, more than I want to admit? It also includes all kinds of resources, both locally and nationally. There are also videos of people who share their own experience of trying to go deal with these kind of things. And it's just, if you look around the county, there are a number of, at least 3 or 4 big billboards up that have some of these slogans on them. One up in North Kingstown says, "You can't fix mental health with duct tape," which appeals to men. Another one says, "Meat grilling is aromatherapy for men." And there's one near Westerly that says, "For the creators of pork chops and fighter jets, therapy the way a man would do it." So it's this macho kind of approach to get people engaged. and it's proven to be very effective. We've only had these, this program's only been in effect in Washington County maybe 7 to 8 months, and we've already had over 3,000 men who have gone to the website and looked at different parts of it. We were able to...
Can I ask you,
sure.
so of the 3,000, so these would be new patients, new clients?
Well, they're not really clients, they're just men who go to this website. And then we're trying to keep track of how many of those will take what we call, there's a special survey that they can take.
Yep.
But we're specifically focused on this on Washington County. So there are a number of these people who go from Rhode Island or from other states, neighboring states even, who are not from Washington County. And they're not really eligible for the surveys that we take. But we're taking surveys to try to find out, we're trying to prove, is this going to be effective?
Okay, so it's not 3,000 men from Washington County?
No.
Okay, it's 3,000 men from
Rhode Island,
from Rhode Island.
Yeah,
okay,
right.
So we don't know what portion, what number had been in treatment or have tried therapy before and are coming back. We don't know what the numbers are, who's new to therapy. But what are the resources that they're going to find available in Rhode Island when they go to the mantherapy.org website?
The resources they're going to find here are all of our partners in this program called Zero Suicide. Okay. All of our partners, we have basically 8 different health systems in the county, and all of them are a part of Zero Suicide. Their contact information is on that website. We also have a specific list of people, therapists who basically major in dealing with men and men's issues and stuff. They're listed as a separate identity.
What makes male issues separate from female issues?
Well,
Mike is smiling again.
At a clinical level, the reality is that men are not going to acknowledge that they need help. They're the people who are supposed to fix things. This is cultural, just as there are other cultural considerations.
Men are fantastic at fixing things.
Men want to fix things. How fantastic we are is another conversation. But that's what we want to do, okay? That's what we're kind of hardwired to default our whole way of thinking about things to. And so what happens is that they neglect their own mental health needs. They neglect or won't label or recognize their own. And by the time they get to someone like me, they've perhaps found themselves in a hospital and then referred to me. They've found themselves told by their peers or their bosses or their chief in the fire department that they need help and they're going to have to get it. Okay, and so they get referred. The same is true of military men. Military men are often reluctant to seek the support they can have with respect to mental health, and that's one of the reasons they're the highest per capita suicide rate in the country. We lose anywhere, depending on the statistics, from 17 to 23 military and veteran folk in a day, in a given day. And less than 1 in 4 have taken advantage of VA outreach to try to help them. So I find myself with men in my office who won't go because of the stigma. They don't want it on their records. Yet they are, as the doctor pointed out, they are the highest risk from age 55 on, the highest risk to die by suicide, compared to women, for example.
Tell me some of those factors that go into that make them higher risk.
Well, if you keep quiet and you keep in denial about anything that's behavioral health oriented, sooner or later it's going to come back up and whack you by the side of the head. It's going to do some of the things that these great slides that Dr. Harrison has. It's going to affect you. It's going to affect your relationships. All of a sudden, you're going to find yourself with your spouse saying, "You go to treatment or we're going to end this marriage." Mm-hmm. You go to substance abuse treatment or you're going to lose your job. And I see people like that all the time from these high-risk groups as well as from families.
Mm-hmm. So you're seeing men coming in with co-occurring disorders, right? So they're
That's
coming
correct.
in with alcohol, substance abuse, addiction.
It's often part of
You're-
it.
Men coming in who have not sought treatment earlier, so now it's built up, you're saying. Any other factors?
Trauma, PTSD. Men don't want to talk about trauma of any kind. And in the high-risk professions we're talking about, they're seeing trauma every day. They're dealing with impossible situations. They blame themselves if they've not been able to stop the person from jumping off the bridge, or help that comrade in arms who one day just decided it was too much.
Now, first responders, for example, have a 6 times higher suicide rate, primarily from the trauma they see, but also from the what I call a macho BS attitude that I'm tough, I'm strong, I'm trained to do this, I don't have to talk to people about my feelings. And it's the same attitude that the veterans have. And we've now lost more veterans to suicide than all the military we lost in Vietnam. Just a tragedy, as Mike says. You know.
So
Tell
one
us
of the
why-
things that really attracted us to this being able to replicate this campaign was that we loved the fact that it just sort of poked you in the eye. It was very provocative and cheeky with the messaging. And while the name is kind of a misnomer. People don't get therapy when they go to the Man Therapy website. They get information about these various issues and how they can get help and what that help looks like, and it describes the various types of treatment that are available to folks. And so it can help take the stigma out and prepare them for that next step. And I think that and it has these wonderful testimonials by people who are first responders and veterans, and leaders, business leaders, so that they may feel not so alone and get information from men in a funny, non-threatening way. And that's what makes it both fun and, I think, engaging for men. And the promotional materials, which we are giving out in primary care doctors' offices, we're posting in fire stations and police departments and places where men gather. We're hoping that that effort is going to drive some men who may be reluctant to get help to get the help that they need.
Did you want to say something else?
Well, I was just going to say that some of the specific posters are aimed at veterans and first responders. One of the posters says, "For men who think that sirens are driving music."
I saw that one.
Yeah, so that's one we give to first responders of all types, you know, ambulance, police, fire, and so on. And there's a number of different veterans that specifically speak to veterans. And we eventually hope to expand this into other industries like the fishing industry, the construction industry, which all have higher suicide rates. And we're working with, the nice thing about Man Therapy is it can be custom tailored to our local population of people. And so we're just starting, so we've got a long way to go on our agreement with them and our contract. And we're excited about just the response so far and lots of other areas to get. For example, in most of the physicians' offices around the county now, if men go into the exam room, there's a poster that says, "This is a physical for your feelings, but you get to keep your pants on." And it refers them to the Man Therapy website. So.
Did you want to say something, Mike?
This is very authentic to what happens in my office, certainly in a therapist's office. This is the way you begin the process of opening the conversation about what's really going on. So for example, here's one that blends 2 or 3 of these things. Okay, so we trained a young EMT who was a lead EMT. And 2 weeks ago, he was on a call for a man, midlife, who died by suicide, not far from my office, actually. He then, as the lead on that that run had to debrief his staff, the other guys, on what that was the beginning process of dealing with the trauma of walking into a scene you can imagine would be traumatic. And in that team, he had a young intern who was a student as well. That impact, that's a huge impact on one life, one family, one team of people who were out there running toward the problem instead of away from it. I had a man come in. He was a former firefighter who became a policeman approaching retirement age. Family had broken up, severe PTSD from his fire EMT work as well as his police work. When he got to me, and I did my usual intake, you have to ask the question about suicide, he looked at me straight in the eye and he said, if I didn't have my cat to take care of, Mike, I wouldn't be here. So what this man therapy program is about is trying to help these guys feel that they have permission to come to somebody who can give them a tune-up, okay, without labeling it words that they're just not going to give themselves permission to think that they have. Okay, it's remarkable. And you asked the question about what's different about women. Sometimes it's the role. So I got a call, and I started working with a young woman in her mid-30s, a veteran medic deployed to Afghanistan. She was in her mid-30s. She's been struggling with the same issues because of her role, her work, and also reluctant to engage in treatment, also having difficulty, unwilling, unable to ask for help because of the culture at times within that world. The doc has got a...
So speaking of feelings, on the resource page, do you direct anyone to EMDR where you don't have to necessarily talk? EMDR, one of the resources, because that's fantastic for PTSD and trauma and rewiring the brain.
We don't say go find somebody who does EMR or EDMR, but the therapist that we do recommend and all the partners know about that and can refer to them if that's appropriate for them. Yeah, it's.
The doc's got a great fish poster. But when I saw that, what I thought about is the process we work on. It's a lot like trout fishing with a barbless hook. Okay, and they run and you bring them in a little bit. They run and you bring them in a little bit. And at a certain point, that recommendation would be something that they'd buy, whether it's EMDR, medication, couples therapy with their family members. It takes that kind of process. Man therapy is the doorway to it on this campaign that the doc is running.
It opens their awareness.
So we are down to less than a minute. I am so sorry. I just wanted to let the audience know that suicide is the #1 preventable death, correct?
It's the most preventable death there is.
Most preventable death there is. So quickly, in the seconds that we have, do you want to share something with our audience about why that is and what maybe an audience member can do?
Well, most people don't realize that suicide is the second leading cause of death from ages 10 to 34. And which is a shame when we say it's the most preventable death there is. So there are trainings that people can take to learn to recognize the warning signs that people who are thinking about suicide put out.
Okay, great. So I don't mean to cut you short, but we're going to have more information up on our website, and we're going to direct our audience to your websites as well. So I'm Darlene DeRezzo. Thanks for tuning in. You can find us online, on the web, and we've just started a new Instagram account, State of the State RI. Thanks.